Look down at your feet. Whatever's on them right now. Sneakers, boots, sandals, whatever. Take them off for a second. Seriously, do it. Feel the floor under you. Now picture this. That floor? That's every surface you'll ever walk on for the rest of your life. Gravel, frozen mud, sun-baked rock, thorns, the bathroom floor at some sketchy gas station. That's the world without shoes. And here's the wild part. For about 99% of human history, that's exactly how we lived. Barefoot. Every step, every hunt, every migration across an entire continent, all on bare skin. Now, your foot is honestly an engineering masterpiece. 26 bones, 33 joints, over 100 muscles and tendons, all working together so you can walk on 2 legs. Almost no other animal on Earth does that full time. But skin and bone can only take so much. And somewhere, tens of thousands of years ago, somebody looked down at their bloody, cracked, frozen feet and thought, there's gotta be something I can put on these. That one little thought? It eventually built a $400 billion industry. But it started with a chunk of dead animal wrapped around a foot. And the story in between is way stranger than you'd think. So when did humans first put something on their feet? Well, here's the problem. Shoes rot, leather decays, plant fibers fall apart. Unlike stone tools that sit in the ground for 2 million years, the stuff early shoes were made of just disappears. So we can't point at the first shoe and go, there it is! But we can look at the bones of the people who wore them. Back in 2005, an anthropologist named Eric Trinkhaus studied the toe bones of early humans, and he noticed something. Humans from way back, around 100,000 years ago, had thick, strong little toes, built for gripping the ground. But humans from around 40,000 years ago, their toes got thinner, weaker. Even though their leg bones were just as strong, think about what that means. When you walk barefoot, your toes grip and flex with every step. That builds thick, strong bones. But put a stiff sole under your foot, and your toes stop working so hard. They get weak. So Trinkhaus figured it out. Humans were wearing some kind of shoe by at least 40,000 years ago. That's not the Bronze Age. That's not even close. That's the middle of the Ice Age. People were wrapping their feet before they painted the famous caves. The shoe is older than almost every other human technology. And we know it, not because we found the shoe, but because of what the shoe did to the foot. Now, the oldest shoes we can actually hold? Way younger. The oldest ones are the Fort Rock sandals from Oregon. Found in 1938, buried under a layer of volcanic ash from an eruption 7,600 years ago, the same one that made Crater Lake. And the sandals were under the ash. Turns out they're around 10,000 years old, woven from shredded sagebrush bark. Not exactly Nikes, but somebody sat down 10,000 years ago and wove a shoe good enough to survive under volcanic ash for 100 centuries. That's impressive. But sandals are only half the story, because in colder places, people were inventing something totally different. A closed, insulating leather shoe. The oldest one? The Ireni 1 shoe, found in a cave in Armenia in 2008. One piece of cowhide, shaped around a foot, laced up with a leather cord, and stuffed with grass. It's about 5,500 years old, the oldest leather shoe on Earth. And here's the cool part. It wasn't just leather folded in half. It was cut to a shape, fitted to a right foot, laced to pull it snug. That's not hasty wrapping. That's shoemaking. And if you want to see prehistoric shoe tech at its absolute peak, look at a dead guy found in the Alps. In 1991, hikers found a body melting out of a glacier. He's about 5,300 years old. They named him Otzi, and his shoes were a masterpiece. Bear skin for the sole, tough, grippy, deer skin up top, soft and flexible, bark fiber netting inside, stuffed with hay for warmth. 5 different materials. A researcher even built copies and tested them in the Alps. No blisters, warm and dry at 10 below. A 5,300-year-old boot outperformed half the stuff at your local sporting goods store. Think about that next time you drop $200 on hiking boots. Now here's where the story takes a turn. For tens of thousands of years, shoes were about survival. Then around 3000 BC, they became about power. In ancient Egypt, when they opened King Tut's tomb, they found 80 pairs of sandals. 80! And on the mummy's feet, sandals made of solid gold, never meant for walking. And some had pictures of enemies painted on the inside. So the pharaoh could stomp on his enemies with every single step. That's not footwear. That's propaganda you wear on your feet. Then came the Romans. Their military boot, the caliga, was genius. cut from one piece of leather with a thick sole studded with iron hobnails. The open design stopped blisters on long marches. The nails gave you grip and turned a kick into a weapon. You literally heard the Roman army before you saw it. And at one Roman fort in England, they pulled nearly 5,000 shoes out of the mud. Baby booties, women's slippers, military boots. It proved women and kids lived there too, something the history books had totally missed. And one letter from that fort? A soldier writing home, asking for socks and underwear. 2,000 years later, that's still the most relatable thing in all of Roman history. Now over in China, things got dark. For about 1,000 years, young girls' feet were broken and bound to fit into tiny shoes. It affected an estimated 2 billion women. An entire civilization spent a millennium reshaping the foot to fit the shoe, instead of making the shoe fit the foot. And in medieval Europe, pure absurdity. In the 1300s, people wore shoes with toes so long, up to 2 feet past the foot, they could barely walk. The longer the point, the richer you were. Because if you obviously can't work in your shoes, everyone knows you don't have to. And studies show these shoes literally gave people bunions and made them fall over. Fashion was deforming feet and knocking people down. But that proved something huge. Shoes had become communication. A shoe told you who somebody was, their money, their class, their whole place in the world. Then came the revolution. Not design, manufacturing. Before the 1880s, every shoe was made by hand. Slow, expensive. Lots of people owned one pair, or none. Then in 1883, an inventor named Jan Matzeliger built a machine that could do the hardest step in shoemaking. A skilled worker made 50 pairs a day. His machine? Up to 700. The patent guys didn't even believe it worked until they saw it in person. His machine did for shoes what the printing press did for books. It made them cheap enough for everyone. Then rubber. In 1839, Charles Goodyear accidentally discovered how to make rubber tough and flexible. Perfect for soles. Grippy, waterproof, and silent. That's actually why we call them sneakers. You could sneak up on people. And in 1971, a track coach poured liquid rubber into his wife's waffle iron to make a better sole. It ruined the waffle iron. But the waffle sole? That became Nike. A breakfast appliance built a $51 billion company. And he never did get that waffle iron back. But here's where it all comes back around. While we spent 5,000 years making shoes fancier, taller, and cheaper, something was happening to our feet, and it wasn't good. A Harvard professor named Daniel Lieberman studied people who grow up barefoot versus people in cushioned shoes. Barefoot folks? Stronger arches, stronger foot muscles, fewer problems. Our feet evolved over millions of years to go barefoot. And we've spent a few hundred years locking them in stiff, padded shoes that do the foot's job for it. So the foot got weaker. We built a tool to protect the foot, and that tool might be slowly changing the very foot it was built to protect. So here's the answer. Humans didn't invent shoes in one place or one time. The bones say we started around 40,000 years ago, and shoes were invented independently, all over the world, because everybody faced the same problem. The ground hurts, and your feet are the only part of you that has to touch it all day long. So tonight, somewhere, a factory's stamping out rubber soles by the thousand, a cobbler's hand stitching leather the old way, a kid's lacing up sneakers designed on a computer and shipped across an ocean. And about 40,000 years ago, in a cave, on a frozen plain, someone wrapped a piece of hide around their foot, tied it off, stood up, and took a step. The ground didn't hurt, and they just kept walking.